Good morning. My name is Geoff de Burca and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom UK, and I'm delighted to be making my tuning in debut this year. Now, this is my first time presenting at a virtual conference, but it feels entirely appropriate that it should be one on the subject of radio. So I'll do my best to channel my inner DJ and not worry about the fact that I can't see my audience right now. I actually started my career in radio production. I was so bad at it that I ended up switching to advertising, which has turned out a bit better for me. But radio was my first love, so it's great to be part of this event today. So I'm going to start today with a short update on the nation's attitudes, and then I'm going to take a look at what might happen next based on what we at Mediacom have observed in other countries that are a step or two ahead of us in their recovery, most notably China. I'm going to start with some positive news. According to YouGov's weekly tracker, happiness in the UK has steadily risen from its low point to become the #1 mood in the country right now. At the same time, fear has halved since its early peak. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that all of the negativity is gone. Many people, as you can see, remain at best bored, but equally as much stressed. But I think it's fair to say that for now, the worst of the worries is behind us. And that's backed up by data showing that the nation increasingly thinks the worst is out of the way. Now, it's clear we've still got a long way to go, but I do think this marks the beginning of the next stage of the outbreak. So what will recovery look like? What can we learn from other markets? Well, I've been speaking to Mediacom colleagues in our office in China, across Europe, and in the USA to find out what we can learn from countries that are a step or two ahead of us. Now, one thing that's for certain is that this will be a variable recovery, which is something we've seen elsewhere. In China, it's been very regional. Wuhan was affected far worse than Beijing or Shanghai. And over here, it seems there are significantly different impacts by life stage. So far, empty nesters have been much less hard hit than families, while research from King's College and Ipsos suggests that women have been harder hit emotionally than men in the UK. So I think it's important for advertisers to really understand which of their customers are more ready to return to normal than others. The next thing we've seen is that media behaviour is starting to settle back to a new normal. During lockdown, the usage of many media surged, especially TV, social media and radio. As restrictions have been eased, we've seen the recovery out of home and a decline in daytime viewing, as you'd expect. But I think what's interesting for advertisers, though, is where those changes have persisted. Peak TV viewing remains higher than pre-crisis levels, no doubt because other evening options have less appeal. The same is true for digital and social channels, where new habits have become ingrained. And finally, we really think that the surge in radio listening will continue as the big increase in working from home becomes the new normal. And that in itself is a trend that we see set to continue. Twitter have this week announced that its staff worldwide will be able to work from home permanently. In China, even in less affected areas like Shanghai, the number of people returning to the office is less than expected and less than before the outbreak. And we strongly think the same will happen here in the UK, which has big implications for public transport, for the amount of office space used, for commuting patterns, for e-commerce, for all kinds of things that will impact on how people interact with brands and with media. Now, as that media behaviour rebounds, so does media spend. As lockdown eases and more opportunities for spending open up, advertisers are returning to the market. Now, while this is good news for media owners, it does mean for advertisers that media will start to become more cluttered and expensive again. Advertising on many channels is the cheapest it's been for many, many years, providing the opportunity to gain share of voice versus your competitors. But that opportunity is going to change as advertisers start to come back. And so there's a real opportunity right now to be spending. Now, I think it's pretty obvious to all of us that even from our own behaviour, that shopping in many sectors has moved online, with surging e-commerce sales in every market we've looked at. But what we're seeing in China and in European markets that are further ahead of us is that surge is set to continue. Whether it's because of older shoppers buying online for the first time or younger ones buying in new categories, once people have tried it, they're less likely to go back. We've seen loads of examples of small businesses selling online for the first time, and we've seen more nimble large advertisers like Heinz moving to create a direct-to-consumer website in just a matter of days to take advantage of the increased desire for store-covered goods. And when it comes to where people spend in recovery, We're seeing a disconnect between what people say they want to spend on post-lockdown and what they're actually doing. In China, when surveyed, people said they were looking forward to outdoor shopping, dining and exercise, and in travelling again. In reality, many people are still very concerned about public gatherings, and we've seen that not just in China, but in countries as diverse as Austria and Norway as well. And we're calling this tension between the desires and fears the clash between FOGO and YOLO. FOGO is the new fear of going out, the natural fear of people to emerge from lockdown while the disease is still out there. It's declining, but it's not gone away. At the same time, there's a you only live once or YOLO attitude, where people are fed up of being cooped up and want to go out to spend. Now, so far, looked at the markets that we've spoken to, it looks like the FOGO side of us is winning out. Fear of public places continues, and even as lockdowns ease, many people are still avoiding the house where possible. In Austria, when schools reopened, the majority of parents didn't send their children back straight away. Retail footfall in many markets has not returned to normal, and people remain afraid of public transport for very good reason. Now, this means that the categories that are seeing the biggest sales surges are the ones that enhance the experience of being at home: paint, garden furniture, home exercise equipment. So while we think there will be some YOLO spend as people look to indulge in ways they've not been able to under lockdown, to spend some of the money that they may have saved during lockdown, if your brand is naturally used more out of home, think about how you can work to understand and to appeal to that FOGO mindset. Another part of the new consumer mindset is the greater emphasis people are paying to health and well-being. In China, people are taking part in more sport and exercise, spending more time in these categories, spending more money, and even spending significantly more on medical insurance. All over the world, sales of bicycles have surged, and cities are putting down more bicycle lanes as people look to both increase their fitness and to avoid crowded public transport. Well-being means more than just physical health. The current crisis has put significant strains on mental health too, and I expect to see many people looking to take steps to look after themselves more, and there may be ways that the brands can help with that. Now, my final point is that even with the unprecedented situation that we're in, that advertising continues to be expected and even welcomed by people. Advertisers that are helpful, sensitive and supportive are getting great feedback. Tesco's recent advert highlighting the social distancing measures they're carrying out in store was turned around in just 2.5 days and has been hitting exceptionally high scores in Kantar's tracking, both for likability and branded recall. Tesco are also active on radio, highlighting the various little helps they're providing for consumers at this time. eBay are using radio to focus on how they're supporting small independent sellers at this difficult time. And Lloyds have used radio to show how they're helping their customers manage their finance during the current unpredictability. All of these advertisers are taking great advantage of radio's increased listening hours and flexibility, helping them connect with their customers when they need it the most. So thank you for listening. I hope you found some of that helpful. Should you want to know more, at Mediacom we have conducted lots of research into consumer attitudes and behaviours at this time, which we'd be happy to share with you. I wish you all the best as we progress through this recovery, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this virtual conference. Thanks very much.